Hello, everyone. Welcome to Cinema Savvy and welcome to our review of Loki Series 2. Now, big day in the MCU today. Of course, this is the release date of the finale of Loki Series 2. It is also the release date of the Marvels, which I have also seen, and there will be a review coming out with myself and George at some point this weekend, so please stay tuned for that. Thank you everyone for joining. If you're coming on, if you're commenting as well in the future, please comment below on your thoughts on Loki. Did you enjoy Loki? Did you not enjoy Loki? Let me know kind of how you found this series. I guess it's over now. It's not going to be renewed for another series. I believe they have finally said, nope, that's it. It's done. There will be no series 3, and this has a sense of finality to it in the series as well. So please make sure you comment below on your thoughts on Loki season 2. And just kind of, get the discussion going, because I really want to chat about this. I really enjoyed Loki Series 1. I think it was one of my favorite of the MCU TV shows. I know that some of them been hit and some of them been miss. I definitely thought that Loki Series 1 was a massive hit, and this series as well seems to be going in that same direction, with the last episode being, wow, the highest rated MCU episode of any TV show they've put out now. So, of course, the immediate reception for the finale was fantastic, and we'll be getting into and talking about that a little bit later on. Please, as well, go and follow us on all of our socials to find out when we're putting out other videos as well. So go and follow us on our Linktree link. That'll take you to all of our socials, and go to our Redbubble link in the description to pick up some merch. I'm wearing mine today, just to make sure we've got all of those covered. Now, fair warning, this is a spoiler review. I have a plan. Have a plan laid out where I'm going to go through some things, but this is a spoiler-filled review. I'm going to be going into some things which other people, if they haven't seen the episode yet, this is massive spoilers. So please go and watch the episode, go and watch the kind of finale. If you're just watching this for a general kind of vibe on how we found the series, I can tell you straight away, I really enjoyed it. George didn't like it, but then again, George didn't like Series 1. But I really, really enjoyed this series, especially for the finale. The final 2 episodes were absolutely fantastic and really does bring the entire series full circle. It is a brilliant, should we say, send-off for the character. And there is definitely some finality, which is weird. We haven't had finality in the MCU since Endgame, and even that's still having its knock-on effects and stuff like that. So to finally have a character have their entire story wrapped up, and they have now a choice. They could go back and touch on the character again in the future, but I'd be just as happy to leave the character where it is. This is almost a perfect ending for the character, as it shows perfect development. And we'll talk about Loki a little bit further on down the line. I want to talk about my thoughts on Season 1 first. Now, Season 1 was 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago. Was it the second show after WandaVision to come out? Anyway, I remember there being a lot of hype behind it. A lot of people like Loki as a character. He's one of my favorite MCU characters. I think he's a favorite amongst a load of people. Tom Hiddleston's always brought a lot of energy to the role in every single kind of facet of his character, every single appearance he's made, whether it's been, in the 4 films, whether it's kind of in the Avengers films and as a villain in those films. And of course, in the first series, he brought that manic energy to the character. I think it's fantastic. Great character introductions to all the people involved in the TVA. A really interesting plot, kind of looking at, pruning different branches, keeping the sacred timeline going, who's actually in charge, and then finally finishing with He Who Remains at the very end, setting everything up for the multiverse saga, which is what we're currently in the MCU at the moment. I really enjoyed Series 1. I don't think I actually was able to get my thoughts out in Series 1, but I enjoyed it. If we're ranking the Disney Plus TV shows, and not including the Netflix ones before, I would definitely put Loki up there as probably the top show from Series 1. Does Series 2 reach those highs? I think it matches them. It gets close. I don't know if it's just the hype of, seeing that final episode and seeing what a perfect ending it was. I'll talk about the episode kind of breakdown a little bit as well. But since Loki Series 1 or Season 1, things have changed in the MCU. We've had controversies, including one of the actors involved in this show, with Jonathan Majors, which is still very much up in the air whether he will continue with the role, whether he will, you know, whether they will kind of cut the character down, or they will, you know, find another way to use him, or whether he will be completely. We don't know what's going on there. As there are, you know, legal proceedings taking place and various different things. We've talked about that previously on the channel, so I'm not going to go into it too much. Which is really interesting, because I will be talking about him in a bit, and his acting talent, which is phenomenal. Flawed person, but definitely a talent in that sense. The current state of the MCU is a bit weird. People haven't liked the films that have been put out. People haven't liked the CGI that have been put out. People haven't liked the TV shows that have been put out. I know that Secret Invasion caused a lot of animosity earlier on in the year. Very negative reviews. People absolutely hated it. Hated everything about the production, all the way through, you know, the acting involved, the CGI involved, the AI used in the opening credits. There was so much going on there, which they really disliked. And this is kind of almost not an apology to that, but it's definitely a better series. It definitely pulls you back onto kind of the early days where you had WandaVision, you had this, you know, you had good shows in all the way through. But yeah, it's definitely heading back on the right track. And I know that Marvel, and generally, I want to say this myself, but in general, superhero films haven't had the best of reputations in recent years. I know that DCEU's kind of on the decline, and, you know, they're having to completely reboot it. I know that Marvel are chopping and changing their schedules. Even today, it was announced that they are going to be doing reshoots after people didn't like the screen tests or whatever it was on New World Order, or whatever they're calling the Captain America 4 film now. So there are a lot of things coming into place that they're going to have to try and, you know, figure out to get a firm footing again. But Loki, as far as setting up kind of moving forwards with the MCU, was brilliant in the first place for showing kind of what potential we had with different timelines, how a manic chaotic character who at the time was picked from time, from the moment in Avengers Assemble, a character who was very, you know, self-centered, you know, just a character who was a villain and taken, and not only does he become a bit more selfless, but he actually gains a conscience throughout the series. He understands his place in the universe, and at least by the end of series 1, he kind of, you know, he's placed in a situation where, you know, he's put back into the TVA. He's now told, okay, look, we need to stop He Who Remains and his variants. And that's kind of where we set off for the series. It's an interesting start. It's an interesting premise that they left off from series 1, and leading into that, they go straight into it, and it gets bonkers straight away. So Loki is time slipping all over the place. He's doing this thing where he teleports in, teleports out of different places in space and time. He goes to Mobius for help. Mobius doesn't really know who he is to start off with, and then there's some pruning things, and he figures out, and they kind of reunite, and blah, blah, blah. We get introduced to some new characters. So first, the new characters introduced is Obi, Ouroboros, played by Ke Huy Quan, who was brilliant. I love Ke Huy Quan. Ever since, you know, he came back to cinema, back to Hollywood, with Everything Everywhere All at Once. I think he's become one of the most liked people in Hollywood. Someone who, you know, wants to get onto every single project. I still haven't seen American Born Chinese. It's one of those, you know, where any project he's attached to, I do want to actually go in and have a look at. And, you know, he brings so much fun energy to the roles that he does. He always has done. His character's role in this is exposition person, but he does it in such a nice way. He is there to kind of, you know, explain to the audience what is going on with Loki, to explain to the audience what is going on with the TVA, because he's the one who wrote the handbook. Him and a character we're going to talk about in a bit. But as far as the character is concerned, he played it brilliantly. A fun-loving character who is so obsessed into his work. And, you know, when we meet his kind of human, actual person counterpart, you can completely understand as a sci-fi novelist who, you know, blurs the lines between science and fiction, how you can become obsessed and become the techie guy in the TVA and become the person who you go to for information. And throughout the series, he is the one we rely on for the science. He's the one we rely on for fixing problems, or at least identifying the problems in the first place. And the big problem at the moment in the TVA, as introduced in episode 1, is the temporal loom. Giant, big thing, you know, all the timelines going in, all the timelines going out at the end, weaving it together. is breaking. It's overloading because of Sylvie killing He Who Remains back in Loki Series 1. It's unleashed a whole hellhole of branch timelines and multiple different things going on, and it's not good. So they have to try and fix the temporal loom. And the entire plot premise of Loki Series 2 is we need to fix the temporal loom. We need to bind everything together and keep the universe intact before timelines get deleted, destroyed, or killed. There is, a plot in the first episode and the second episode where, the TVA are kind of actively fighting against each other, parts of the TVA. So some of the members of the TVA want to prune the timelines, kill people off. The other half want to save the timelines because they're sacred lives they should live. And it's a bit of chaos, and it's one of those, it's like the trolley problem kind of playing out across time and space. Do you fight to save for one timeline, or do you let, by doing that, you let 5 timelines die? It's one of those kind of, awkward situations where they have to try and figure out which is worth saving and which isn't worth saving. It's very confusing, but it does tie up nicely within the show. We then have a bit of time travel, a bit of exploration when Sylvie gets reunited. She goes and works at McDonald's. There was some advertising in there and stuff like that. It was fun to see her in the past and trying to live a normal life, but clearly she wasn't living a normal life. We get introduced to another new character in the series, which is same actor, different role, Victor Timely, played by Jonathan Majors, and he does a brilliant job in this role. And even in the series, we do get to see He Who Remains again in the later episodes of the series. His ability to bounce between the two characters is excellent. And it really is a shame that, his status in the MCU is up in the air because of his personal life. Because what he has brought to the role is gravitas. He's brought that menacing presence. He's brought that kind of, that different energy to every single character. He's been a chameleon with every single role that he's been placed in so far within, whether it's Kang, He Who Remains, we've seen clips of Ramatut, Immortus. We've seen him as Victor Timely now. It is a shame that, as an actor, he's got those personal problems going on, and I'm hoping that justice does kind of find its way and stuff like that. I don't really, I love the TV shows and I love the films and I love the MCU, but honestly, justice prevails overall in any circumstance. And whether the MCU will decide to take a different direction with the character, whether they'll write out or whatever based on kind of what's found, we'll see when it gets round to it. But as far as Victor Timely is concerned, brilliant addition, really fun character to get on board with. The stammer and stutter that he's brought to the role, and the genius and wisdom and the whole kind of the whole point of an Ouroboros snake as a snake eating its tail, and we have OB Ouroboros who finds, gets the TVA handbook written by Victor Timely. Victor Timely gets the TVA handbook written by Ouroboros, so it kind of circulates and cycles over. And the whole point of the series is back to square one. Everything is kind of, in a circle with little changes every single time. We get that kind of print repeat kind of towards the end of the series, and I think the way they do it is fantastic. We get characters going back, fan favorites. We get Mobius, we get Renslayer, and we get the rest of the TVA coming back as well. I think Mobius didn't have as much to do in this series, which was interesting. I think Owen Wilson was okay in the role, but I didn't enjoy him as much as his kind of first performance was in the first season. I don't think he had as much material. I do like, that we finally got to see him as a jet ski salesman, as that's kind of what he did in his past life. We get to see him as a dad, and even towards the end of the series, his kind of finality is that he will go over and he's quitting the TVA. He will live a normal life, or at least try to. Whether we'll see him again, no idea. That's one of those which is definitely up in the air. Renslayer, once again, gets a lot less to do, and I'm assuming that she's going to have more to do in the future, seeing as where she ends up. She ends up with a life at the end of time. At the very, very end of the series. Once again, she is kind of a villain of the series, as she's trying to work with He Who Remains, but then she's also not working with He Who Remains. She has her own kind of glorious purpose that is going to be coming for her in the future, I feel. Whether she teams up and kind of helps out with the Council of Kangs or whatever it's called, or whether she kind of has her own kind of mission to stop the TVA or, do something different with time. We do, however, get a slightly better villain, which I'm going to talk about in a second, just to top up on the drink. Miss Minutes was frightening in this series. We had that sense of unease in the first season, where Miss Minutes was, there was that one bit in the final episode where she popped up and it was like, oh, jump scare. Okay, she's actually quite creepy. She talks quite creepy and she has that calming sense, but that's very uneasy. In this series, she goes full on villain. She kills people. She tortures people. She actively looks to kill, the main protagonist of the series. It is frightening. What they do with Miss Minutes in this series. I mean, she's brought back at the end and maybe she's good. We don't know yet. But yeah, it was nice that was a little bit of a spin on it. We have a character that we already know who's brought in as an actual villain who maybe we trusted in the past. It's interesting as well, seeing her way of manipulating Renslayer, manipulating different people in the TVA to try and get her on her side, just to try and keep the sacred timeline together. And towards the start of the series, you kind of think, wow, straight up villain, don't understand it. But then towards the end of the series, you do understand slightly what she was trying to get at, because the real solution at the end is the sacred timeline is the only thing that can survive. And throughout the entire final episode, we go through loops and loops and loops of Loki trying to protect the other timelines and trying to keep everything together, but realizing that realistically, the sacred timeline is the only thing that can survive. And he has to make the hardest of choices to keep that alive and keep that safe so that people can't branch off and so that the temporal loom, doesn't explode the entire universe. So you can understand why Miss Minutes had that kind of, okay, look, these people aren't listening to me. I'm just going to kill them and, try and get my own way kind of thing. We now get on to Loki and Sylvie. I'm going to talk about Sylvie first because I think Sophia Di Matteo, she had less to do in this series. Sophia Di Martino. She had less to do in this series. We see her at the end of episode 1 going and getting work at McDonald's. We see her in episode 2 working at McDonald's and getting reunited with Loki. In this series, she ends up being the thing that Loki is trying to protect, but also the thing that Loki is trying to stop. He realizes that when she kills He Who Remains, it's one of those where it's like, she kills He Who Remains, shouldn't have done that, and she's caused all the chaos because of it. But he still has that affection for her. He still has that kind of protection for her. He doesn't want her to, feel guilty about what she did because she's very stern with it. But at the same time, he wants to protect all the timelines that are going on, but he knows that he can't do that without killing her. And this entire series' crux basically comes down to Loki's affection for Sylvie and his soft spot for her, and trying to keep Sylvie on his good side and, not go against her. And when everyone else is disappearing around him, when he's time slipping in episode 5 and everyone else is turning into time spaghetti or whatever it's called, whatever they're going to call it, she's the last one to go. And it's when she goes, that's when he, he's able to control it. He's able to keep things under control. I mean, she is him in, different universe female forms. So that's kind of their relationship, and it parallels each other. And she survives at the end of the series. I wonder if she'll show up again. I wonder if she will become, part of Secret Wars down the line, or, whether she will be involved in the Kang dynasty, seeing as she's fought against them before. I'm assuming the TVA will have a hand in it somewhere as the TVA survives, even if not everyone from the series kind of goes on. I think Sylvie may show up again. I'm not sure if they've fully utilized the character yet, whether she'll meet. I would love to see her interact with Thor. I'd love to see her interact with, a different universe's brother and seeing kind of him alive, and just that would be an interesting point to interact off. But whether she goes back to that universe, she can universe hop and she can do whatever she wants. So who knows in that sense. Loki, Tom Hiddleston, smashes it. Absolutely smashes it. One of the best performances of Marvel across the board. Consistently good in every single role, even in the bad films that he's in, for the Dark World. He consistently smashes out of the park. He has been a constant good in the MCU. And in this final series of Loki, he signs off the character in the way that he wanted to. I know that he decided to come back to the role in the first place because he enjoyed the character. He enjoyed exactly, he wanted to explore more and see more of what Loki could do with his powers. And, maybe Loki will come back. But I quite like the ending that we're left with this character. And the entire crux of this series is that Loki's time slipping. He's trying to keep himself together, keep himself in one piece, and trying to save the sacred timeline. But in the end, after spending decades, training himself up to try and, get Victor Timely down the gangway, get him to do everything in the right time, in the right place, it doesn't work in the end. And he realizes that he has to make the great sacrifice. So having done, we don't know how many years time loops, and how wise and aged he would have become, how much time he would have spent with his now friends at the TVA. The people, one stage Loki was, I don't want anyone else. I want to have a throne to myself. I don't need anyone else around me. I just have me. To the end, spending time with his friends, trying to learn off them, trying to find a way to save them, trying to find a way to save everyone. It's a completely different character to where we saw at the start, and it's brilliant growth. And in the end, we get to see possibly one of the coolest bits of imagery I think we've seen in the MCU in total. Definitely the coolest bit of imagery since Endgame, with Loki becoming the tree. Now, I need to get the name of this right, because, it is in Norse mythology. It is the, what's it called? The Yggdrasil, which is the sacred tree in Norse cosmology. Around it exists everything else, including all of the 9 realms. So Loki becomes the god of time. He becomes the centerpiece and the kind of ruler, watcher, king, whatever, over all of time forever. He does this by, using his, immense powers to break the loom, using his, mischief, magic, whatever, breaks the loom, and then grabs pieces, strands of time together, and weaves it himself into a tree. And in doing so, he is destined to stay there forever, holding, he has a throne. He's destined to sit on the throne forever, which is what his character always wanted. But in the end, it's a massive sacrifice. He is, he's never going to see his friends again. He's never going to, interact with the world. His burden is to be the Lord Keeper of time. And that is such a poetic end to this character, with everything that he's gone through throughout the series. And the great thing about this final episode, and why I think it's being loved by so many, is because it has, first of all, the same name as the first episode, Glorious Purpose, and it is his final glorious purpose. But not only that, it explores, it goes back to that first episode. It goes back to, where we began. So we get a grand sense of everything from the series culminating in one moment. And for 12 episodes to take you on that journey from 1 to 2, first of all, you don't need to watch anything else to watch Loki. You could watch Loki Series 1, you could watch Loki Series 2, and I think they, the directors, or at least, was it Kevin Feige, described it as it being a book. One half of a book, second half of the book, and you can close the book now because it's over. And it's just a fantastic end to the character. It's just a brilliant end, beautiful imagery, beautiful music, everything. The amount of strength that it looks like he's taking, and, the toll that it has on him to be sat there with his new costume and being that, person to hold time together for everyone, for the entire universe, it's unreal. And I genuinely implore everyone, I mean, you probably watched it at this point, but if you haven't watched it at this point, you're suddenly like, wow, that sounds really cool, I want to watch it. You should absolutely go and watch it. This series was phenomenal. And people are going to be talking about this within the MCU for a while now, because it's a show that's, done 2 series, it's finished its run. And it's just been brilliant. I don't think there's a single episode where I didn't like it. I'm definitely going to go back and watch it again. I watched back through Series 1 a few times. I'm definitely going to watch back through Series 2, and probably watch Series 1 through to Series 2 now that they're all out, at some point in the winter, because it's a constant in the MCU, and it's a great story to be told. I just want to go on to just kind of some points on the music and the visuals and everything like that, because we have a different director, or different directing team this time round. So the first time round, we had Kate Herron direct all the episodes, but she's gone off and she's now writing for Doctor Who for the latest series. Instead, we ended up with Justin Benson and Aaron Moorhead, who directed Moon Knight. So they have that connection to, or they directed some episodes of Moon Knight, 2 episodes, I think. They have that connection to Marvel already. They've done a reasonably good job of it. And yeah, no, seamless. It didn't seem like it was being directed by someone new. It had the same visuals. It had the same everything flowing towards it. So I've really enjoyed that. Natalie Holt, once again, nails it with the music. The aesthetic from the series, from the visuals, the music, to everything involved, is absolutely fantastic. It draws together so well, and as far as production is concerned, it's great again. I really enjoyed kind of the big fat suit for the radiation coming out. I enjoyed the travel into the past. I enjoyed Loki's new costume towards the end. Everything involved in this series has been so well designed and so well put together. I've only really got my final thoughts to go for, which is please go and see Loki. I think it is the greatest Marvel TV show outside of the Netflix ones. I still hold a great place in my heart for both Daredevil and for Jessica Jones. But I think this is a massive positive step forwards in the MCU. I really do hope that they do stick to their guns and, keep, Loki the sacred thing, because I don't want them to add to this story. I think it ends perfectly. I think it really does for the character. A selfish, villain character ending up being not just the hero, but, a selfless god of time, hero of time, whatever, becoming the universal tree to hold the 9 realms and everything together, never being able to see his friends again, but knowing that they're safe, is a brilliant ending. And the fact that he was given this choice throughout the entire episode, whether he should kill Sylvie, whether he should do things differently, and trying again and putting the effort in. He was away for decades learning all of these kind of astrophysics and learning how the TVA works, just so that he could guide people through and save his friends. That's dedication. That's it's something that we haven't seen from a character before. So I really enjoyed the series, and I hope everyone did as well. Please comment down below. Did you enjoy Loki Series 2? Are you excited about where the MCU is going to take you next? I definitely am, and we'll be talking about the Marvels coming up this weekend as well. We'll get George on for the review for that. We're not sure when that is yet, so please go and follow us on our socials to find out when exactly we're going to be going live. Social media, linktree.com/cinemasavvy, and Redbubble link is in the description as well. Thank you everyone for watching my solo 30-minute rant on how good Loki Series 2 is. Hope you enjoyed, and we will see you on the next one.